Hello, my name's Alex and welcome to the Crafter Camper channel. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're a returning viewer, then welcome back. Welcome to the shed. This population, probably about 500 spiders, me, and recently I think there's a wasp nest under the floor in the corner there, so I barricaded myself in because honestly I don't want a queen wasp getting in here. So anyway, in today's video I'm going to be building this lithium, well, this collection of 8 lithium phosphate cells into a battery pack for the Crafter. So just before I get on with that, I just want to say sorry it's been a bit of a while since my last upload. Life's just really got in the way really. So firstly, we went to visit my family back over in Essex in the UK. I live in Devon, and on the way there we hit a pothole which completely destroyed my shock absorber, as you can see. And then also during August, so it's September now. During August we also decided to knock a wall down in the house. I didn't film any of that, I just wanted to get on with it. As any of you who make videos know, filming things means it takes 3 or 4 times as long. So I just got on with it, built a new worktop, just a temporary, this is completely a temporary kitchen for us until we get to save up enough money to buy the units, but we can enjoy the space. So anyway, that's what's been going on. I've been struggling a bit with my mental health as well, but I won't go too much into that. It's been a bit rough this summer, but you know, as it has been for many people, I'm sure. So anyway, let's get on with the fun things. I'm going to build this into a battery pack for the van, as I said. I don't know how familiar you are with lithium, so I'm going to treat you as if you know nothing. I've got 8 cells. Each of the cells is 280 amp hours. Each cell is 3.3 volts. So what I need to do is I need to increase the voltage to turn this into a 12 volt battery. The reason I've got 8 and not 4, so four cells, so you times 3 times 4 is 12. 4 cells is enough to make a 12 volt battery. That would make a 12 volt 280 amp hour battery. I've got 8 cells, which means I'm doubling the amp hour capacity, so I then would have a 560 amp hour battery at 12 volts. So I put them in pairs. So I'll have 1 pair, 2 pair, 3 pair, 4 pair, and that will increase the voltage to become a 12 volt battery as well as the amp hours. So it's what's known as a 4S2P battery pack. So I've got a 4S Dali BMS to install. That's this here. So this will manage the batteries. So you can't just put lithium battery cells together and just plonk it in your van, because it will all go horribly wrong. If these cells go over voltage, it's quite likely that they can catch fire and swell up and explode, or you'll just lose your van. So you need to have, if you're doing this, you need to have a good quality BMS. So anyway, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some aluminium plates on the end. I've already pre-drilled the holes for these, and then I'm going to run some threaded bar along each side just to clamp the battery pack ever so slightly. I'm hoping that this will stop the cells from swelling. So lithium prismatic cells are quite happy being compressed, not within an inch of their life obviously, but yeah, slightly compressed, and they'll be quite happy. So anyway, the first thing I need to do is get the positives and the negatives in the right order. So like I said, all 8 of these, all the positives are facing me, all the negatives facing the window. So I need to put these into pairs. So I'm going to start this end. So I've got a positive here. I'm going to take this cell. You know what I'm going to do before I do this? I'm going to take my watch off. Back when I was 18 or 19, I was working on, I've got an old classic Beetle if you didn't know, and I managed to put my hand down the side of my battery, connect the positive on the watch strap and the watch face on the chassis of the vehicle, and I managed to quite severely burn my wrist. So I'm also going to take my wedding ring off so that I don't have anything metal on my hands. So yeah, just for a bit of safety's sake. Okay, so I've got 2 positives, a negative. I need to turn this one round into a negative, and then I've got positive, and then these 2 end ones become negative as well. So I now have 2 positive, 2 negative, 2 positive, 2 negative. So when I join these together, that's going to be 3.3 volts, 6.6 volts, 9.9 volts, and 13.2 volts. So I bought these back in March. I purchased them in March. It took until May for them to be delivered. I bought them directly from China. They turned up literally the day before Sophie and I went on our Italian holiday that is in the videos. If you want to go back onto the channel, have a look. So that was end of May. It's now the beginning of September, so it's been a bit of a while since I've had these and I haven't actually done anything with them. But there's not really any excessive swelling. They've just been stored here in the shed during the heat wave that we've had here in the UK. So I think it got up to about between 25 and 30 degrees in the shed here. So they seem to be good. I'm just going to check the voltage, just make sure that they're all still showing the same. I checked them a couple of months ago just to make sure that they all read the same voltage. So let's just do this. 3.30, 3.30, 3.30. So yes, they're all measuring the same voltage. So that is good. That's a good indication that they're all at the same level of charge. They're all healthy, and I can build this into one pack. So I've got some copper buzz bars. So these are the ones that came with the batteries. And one of the things I didn't think about until they arrived, and I went to build this, is that I only got enough. They were supplied with buzz bars and nuts, but they were only supplied with enough to make a set of 4. You know, one battery out of 4 cells. So what I actually needed was more, basically. I was given, was it 8 buzz bars. I actually needed 12 because I need to be able to pair these and then increase the voltage. So I'm going to start at one end. And I'm just going to pair these up first. So I'm going to put, what I should say is, if you're not confident with this, don't do it. Find someone else. I used to work for a manufacturer of battery packs and electric motors, and I used to install these on the underside of transit vans. So I have a bit of experience. So yeah, just be very careful about what you're doing and think 3 times before you try and connect something, because you can get sparks and all of a sudden these things can, I don't know what will happen, but I know it won't be good. So just be careful. So I've joined the 2 positives of this one together, 2 positives of that one together, 2 positives of that one, 2 positives of that one. Okay, so then basically what I'm doing is I'm pairing up these cells. And I'm going to pair the negatives of these, negatives of that, negatives of that, negatives of that, negatives of that. Okay, so these pairs are still in pairs of 3.3 volts. The next ones I'm going to do, so that's my 8 buzz bars that I received with the batteries. Let's see if that's pack. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the voltage. So when you do this, you end up with the positive terminal of your battery at one end and the negative terminal at the other. So I'm going to start with the positive closest to you. So I'm going to join the positive and the negative of those ones. And then if you follow the current, the positive goes into there, comes into here, so then I want to come down to this one, do the opposite side, and then I want to do that side. So in theory, when I put my multimeter from one end of the battery to the other, I've now got 13.2 volts. So that means I've done it correctly. There's no fire, there's no brimstone, haven't let the angry pixies out of the little angry pixie boxes. That is essentially my battery. The next thing I've got to do is I've got to install the BMS. So each of these pairs of cells needs one of these wires connecting to it. This monitors the voltage of the of the battery cell. Yeah, and it allows the BMS to do its thing, to balance the battery and to keep tabs on it. So you need to connect this wire before you connect it to the BMS. That's always the advice that's given as part of the procedure. So I think what I need to do next is I need to find some little ring terminals to put on these, and then I need to work out which is cell number 1, because if you can see that, there's a black wire which is the negative wire, and then there's 4 red wires. So the negative goes one end, and then you start and work your way. So they have to go in a specific order for it to be able to work. So I'll find some ring terminals, and then I'll come back and we'll install this. Okay, so I've got my little crimps. I can double check that they go over the terminal, so that's good. So the next thing I need to do basically is crimp these onto the wires. So I've got the wiring diagram out of the box, just to double check that I'm actually wiring this up correctly. So I'm not going to plug this in to the BMS until this is all done, because this, I believe that's quite a quick way to destroy your BMS. So the way I'm going to mount my BMS to my battery, because I'm going to have 2 threaded rods, they're like a really long bar, like a bar of bolt, if that makes sense. I'm going to have 2 threaded bars that are going to go along each side, and I'm just going to cable tie my BMS to the side of the pack. That feels like a good way to keep it near the battery without it touching. So I'm hoping there's not going to be a lot of heat transferred from the BMS to the battery, and vice versa if the batteries start to get hot. But it keeps it near enough that it's, yeah, that's what I'm hoping. Whether this works or not, I don't know. One of the other things I should mention is I've bought some like little conduit to pass the bar through. Obviously I've got a whole run of it, not just that little bit. So I'll cut that to length and pass that through, but kind of get ahead of myself here. But let's see. So this one goes on the negative, along with the negative of the BMS. And then we need a nut. So I'm not going to do everything up like tight at the moment. I'm just going to do it like finger tight, just to keep things in place. The buzz bars that I bought off of AliExpress, they came with nuts which are flanged. So that's a flanged nut. You can see that. But it's also got serration on the other side as well. I don't know if you can see that in the light. Whereas the ones that came from the manufacturer are just standard M6 nuts. And I don't know, I think I like the serration better because it should just bite into the copper, and hopefully when the van's driving along it won't rattle loose, which I think these standard stainless steel nuts might actually do. These flange nuts are also stainless steel. So right, anyway, let's waffle in. Let's see, the next red wire, so starting from the black wire, so on this particular BMS, the black wire goes to your battery negative, and then the next red wire next to it goes to the positive of the same cell. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to crimp all of these and then just get it working, and then if it looks a bit messy I might come back and just trim these up once I've got the BMS mounted. So I'll end up cutting these ring terminals off, and basically re-crimping them, stripping the wire, re-crimping them, and just building it to a length. But I think to start off with, I'm just going to get this working. So right, so the first cell, the same cell as the negative. Because I'm doing this as pairs, it wouldn't matter if I do each end because they're all connected. So that's that one. Again, just doing this finger tight for now. No talking of anything down. So then the next red wire, right, so the second one goes to the, so the red wires only ever go to the positive terminals of the cells, so this goes to the next set, so it should be that one there. Remember, your plug should not be plugged into your BMS at this point. that's that one. So yeah, August has been a bit of a difficult month. It was really nice to go and see my family. My sister-in-law has just given birth to their second child, Sienna, so that's really nice. But yeah, like I say, on the way there we hit a pothole and it absolutely destroyed my shock absorber. My caddy's lowered, so that's been difficult. And then on the way back, an injector decided that it didn't want to inject diesel into the engine anymore, so I've had to replace one of those as well. And because it's what, 9 years old and done 160,000 miles, the bracket and things, yeah, fuel return pipe's broken, and yeah, so it's just off the road, just waiting for parts now. So I thought I'd come into the shed and do this because I've been meaning to do this for months. So anyway, so that's the third wire is now on the positive terminal of the next one along. So we put the first red wire on the same side as the negative, then the next pairing is there, and then the third pairing, and then the last pairing is going to get the last terminal. So right, so this is then the positive. So the last one should be on the same positive of the cell that your battery positive comes from. So any loads, your solar charging, that sort of thing, the positive should all come from here. You shouldn't ever need to take it from any of the other poles. There's absolutely no reason, because the voltage is wrong and you're likely to damage the battery. The negative of the battery then becomes the negative of the BMS. So the BMS then becomes like a switch almost. If it needs to balance the battery, it will then basically cut out and stop it from overcharging. So, and also it will stop it from going undercharged. The BMS will actually act like a voltage drop relay type thing, so that if the voltage gets below a prescribed amount, it'll just cut the battery off. Your solar charger will probably do the same thing. If you're running your loads through your solar charger, if you've got like an MPPT that takes the load off, again, if the battery gets too low, it'll probably cut it out. So the BMS is not going to do anything in your van that actually doesn't already exist. So it'll protect the battery. That's the main thing. These 8 cells cost me about £1,000, so I'm quite happy that this will be protected. If my lights go out, my lights go out, fine. I'd rather protect my investment than damage it in order to keep my lights on for an hour, you know. So anyway, so I'm just going to put some nuts on the other terminals, just as I say, finger tight for now, just to keep everything in place. One of the things you really want to do is just be careful about what you're doing, because you don't want to touch a positive and a negative terminal at the same time, because you could short the battery out and also hurt yourself. So just be quite deliberate, don't rush it, just be very careful. And that also extends to when you are tightening up the nuts. It's incredibly easy with a metal spanner to just sort of, you know, you're turning 360 degrees and you touch 2 terminals together and you'll get sparks, and potentially you can weld the spanner to the terminals, and actually that will short your battery out and you could cause a fire. And I don't know if you've seen the videos on lithium on YouTube. When lithium batteries catch fire, they're ferocious. So just be careful, be deliberate about what you're doing. Again, if you're not confident in this, don't do it. It's not worth it. Be very careful to not cross thread your studs that come out of here. If it doesn't feel like it's going on, don't force it, because you're probably going to damage it. This is why I'm doing this by hand with my fingers, because I can't put too much torque into the nut, and hopefully I won't damage it. So I've got much more feeling with my fingers than I have with a tool. So anyway, just cracking on with this. Right, so they're just kind of roughly screwed down. The other reason why I'm not tightening them at the moment is because I plan on compressing my pack. So what I want to do is just have a bit of play. I'll probably loosen these off a bit and then just tighten everything up so that the buzz parts can move on the terminals, because otherwise I've got a chance of like putting a force through the terminal, and that's the last thing I want to do. I don't want to put any force through my terminals whatsoever. So tightening that down will probably become the last thing. So anyway, right, so this is, I don't need to do the terminals now, I can just do the copper. This is 3.3 volts, and that is still 3.3 volts. So if I go to positive to negative there, that should be 6.6, which it is. If I go to the negative of that, which should be 9.9, which it is. And the negative of this one, 13.2. Wonderful. So everything is as I expect it to be. Nothing is getting hot. They're all, it's all happy. So I don't think anything untoward has happened from what I've done so far. Okay, it says to put the Bluetooth module in. I'm not too sure that I've got the app on my phone yet. Okay, then it says plug in the monitoring cable. So this, I think, is where I'm going to find out how long my cables need to be. So I'm just, on my BMS there's a positive and a negative sign, so I'm just making sure that I'm getting it in the right way around, because I don't want to reverse the polarity. So my black cable is a negative, so I'm going to plug that in, and that in theory should make it all live. Okay, so I've just checked the voltage of my from the positive of my battery to the battery out. So the negative connects to there, there's a battery out, this is where the load negative will go, and that's showing voltage, so I know that now my BMS is connected. So that's good, it's showing the same voltage as if I was to measure the pack itself. Okay, so I'm just going to download the app to my phone just so I can communicate with the BMS, just set up the settings there, so I'll just come back after I've done that. Hopefully nothing will have changed and everything will be good. I did a little bit more off camera than I was expecting, I won't lie, but it was all fairly mundane stuff. So let me just grab the camera that's up here. What I did was I mounted the BMS to the rails. So obviously I've put these bars in, cut these to length, and bolted the plates to the battery pack, and then I've cable tied my BMS to the rails, to the bars, to the threaded bars. So this is the plastic conduit that I've put the bars into to protect the cells from rubbing on the harshness of the thread. So that's just one long thread that runs from end to end. It's just got some nuts on the end. So I've tightened down all of the buzz bars, the copper buzz bars. And you can see my wiring up here. I've just used these sticky pads to cable tie the wires just to keep them all in order. And there's a temperature sensor that I've got cable tied in here, and this is the Bluetooth sensor. At the moment this is just wrapped around because I don't know where in the van I'm going to want to put this, whether it needs to be closer to something in order to get good connectivity. So one of the things was I've torqued down the nuts. So one of the things the thing that I did when I did this was when I torqued it, I held the torque wrench out to the side of the battery pack rather than coming across the pack where I'm likely to actually touch both the positive and the negative. So if you make sure that you keep the handle away from the other terminal, in theory you can't short the pack out. You still got to be careful from side to side, obviously. Probably shouldn't do that with a metal object. You've obviously got to be careful that you don't short from there to there, but you're less likely to do something if you, instead of going all the way around. So anyway, that's pretty much the finished pack. It's as pretty as it can be. I don't have a box for it. I'm going to install it in my van and see what I can do to protect the top of the terminals to make sure that nothing falls on it. in theory it's going to be inside the bed, which is all made of wood. So you can see here what I was talking about before, being in pairs. So these are two pairs together, 2 positives, 2 negatives. So that's one, that's treated as one cell, and then that is positive to negative, sorry, negative to positive there, 2 positives, 2 negatives. So that's one cell in theory, two cells acting as one. And you can see how this joins together to make your positive there and your negative there. So you've got the B minus cable coming down into the battery negative cable coming down into the BMS, and then you've got the P negative, which is the load. So you use that and that positive terminal to wire up your van, and that's about it really. So that concludes this battery build. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it's informative. Honestly, the takeaway thing I think you really should take away from this is, whilst it looks simple, if you're not confident with electrics, don't attempt it. Find someone who is and ask them. But if watching me has made you given you a bit more confidence, if you've worked with lead acid batteries and that sort of thing, the principles are all the same. So, fairly reasonably straightforward. I got these directly from China, but I bought them back in March when the dollar price was a bit better. I think I paid, including shipping, $1,100, I think. I'll double check that. I'll put that on the screen, just how much I paid for the battery cells as well as the BMS. I bought them in dollars, so obviously the price will change now with the exchange rate being as it is. So in the next part, I'm going to install this in the van. Hopefully that won't take me too long between now and actually filming it. I've got a bit going on in September, so I'm going camping for a weekend with some friends, so I want to get that later in the month. I want to get this in the van before that, so to give it a good test. And then I think Sophie and I are going to go to, we were planning on going to Scotland, but that's kind of gone by the by. I think we might be going to South Wales now, just for a few days rather than 2 weeks. So yeah, I hope this has been useful. If you're looking for more information on LiFePO4 cells on YouTube, I can thoroughly recommend Will Prowse. He's done lots of things for many years. I've watched a lot of his videos, and it's been really useful. So I realise I've been standing here like a teacup most of the time. So yeah, anyway, please do like the video, leave a comment if you think there's something I could have done better, or there's some glaring error that you think you've seen. I don't think there are any. Or if you just liked it, just say that you liked it. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel. It's slowly growing, which I like to see. So anyway, thank you very much, and I will see you on the next one.